When people think of Andy Warhol, they immediately recall the silver wig, the transparent plastic glasses, and that enigmatic yet sharp silhouette. Born in 1928 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to a poor Slovak immigrant family, Warhol's early years were marked by illness that kept him bedridden for long periods. During this time, he developed an obsession with drawing, Hollywood celebrities, and glossy magazines. These interests shaped his worldview and fueled a lifelong fascination with fame, glamour, and consumer culture concepts that would later dominate his artistic career. After graduating in 1949 with a degree in commercial art from Carnegie Institute of Technology, today Carnegie Mellon University, Warhol moved to New York City. Just 2 days after arriving, he landed his first assignment with Glamour magazine. This break marked the beginning of a prolific career as a commercial illustrator. By the early 1950s, Warhol was one of the most sought-after names in advertising and fashion illustration, working with prestigious clients like Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, Vanity Fair, Tiffany, Co., and Christian Dior. A defining element of Warhol's style during this period was his blotted line technique, a hybrid method that gave his drawings a soft, delicate quality. It was especially well-suited for advertisements of shoes, handbags, and jewelry. In fact, shoes became his signature motif in the 1950s, earning him a reputation as the artist of shoes. His fashion illustrations did not merely sell products, they elevated them into decorative art. This early immersion in the fashion world ensured that, even after shifting toward fine art, Warhol's career remained inseparably linked to clothing and style. By the late 1950s, Warhol was restless. Despite his commercial success, he craved recognition as a serious artist. Around the same time, pop art was emerging both in the United States and Europe through artists like Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, and Roy Lichtenstein. The movement drew heavily on imagery from advertising, consumer goods, and mass media, reflecting the post-war boom in consumerism. Warhol found his true artistic calling here. His early pop art experiment was a painting of a Coca-Cola bottle in 1961. But his definitive breakthrough came the following year with the legendary Campbell's Soup Can series. Consisting of 32 canvases, each depicting a different soup flavor, this body of work completely upended the conventions of art at the time. Instead of abstract emotions or heroic brushstrokes like the abstract expressionists, Warhol presented mundane, mass-produced products as art. Initially, critics dismissed the work as mechanical and superficial, yet this mechanical repetition was precisely Warhol's point. He was highlighting a society where sameness, branding, and reproducibility defined value. The soup cans were not a parody, but a mirror of American consumer life. Building on this success, Warhol developed his iconic silkscreen technique, creating works such as Marilyn Diptych, 1962, Brillo Boxes, 1964, and the Haunting Death and Disaster series. These works blurred the line between high art and commercial product, turning art itself into a commodity. This deliberate fusion of art and commerce cemented his reputation as the Pope of Pop. In 1963, Warhol opened his first studio, The Factory, at 231 East 47th Street in Manhattan. The studio, covered in silver foil and buzzing with eccentric personalities, became both a production site and a cultural hub. Assistants, friends, and socialites gathered to help Warhol churn out silkscreens, shoot films, and stage happenings. The Factory symbolized Warhol's belief that art could be produced like products on an assembly line, a radical idea at the time. The Factory also allowed Warhol to experiment with fashion in innovative ways. He transformed his soup can prints, Brillo box patterns, and even his banana motif into dresses and garments. The most famous example, the super dress, was mass-produced by Campbell's itself as a promotional item, available to consumers for 1 and 2 soup can labels. This transformation of artwork into actual clothing epitomized Warhol's belief that art and fashion were inseparable. Warhol also built his own identity as a kind of brand. His silver wig, plastic glasses, and uniform black turtlenecks became an instantly recognizable look. Warhol himself became a living artwork. His understanding of branding and media manipulation was decades ahead of its time, anticipating today's influencer culture. Warhol's ties to fashion deepened through friendships with Giorgio Armani, Gianni Versace, Halston, Betsey Johnson, and others. His social life at Studio 54, a hotspot for celebrities, designers, and models, blurred the boundaries between art, fashion, and nightlife. In 1969, he launched Interview magazine, often called the crystal ball of pop culture, which featured interviews and photo spreads of models, actors, and designers, reinforcing his influence in both the art and fashion worlds. In 1968, Warhol's life took a dramatic turn when he was shot and seriously wounded by radical feminist Valerie Solanas. Though he survived, the trauma and health complications stayed with him for the rest of his life. Still, he continued to produce prolifically through the 1970s and 1980s, expanding into photography, publishing, and even television. He collaborated with younger artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat and Keith Haring, bridging the gap between pop art and a new wave of contemporary art. Warhol's impact on fashion rivals his contribution to art. Yves Saint Laurent's 1966 pop art collection was an early homage to Warhol and his contemporaries. In the 1980s, Stephen Sprouse incorporated Warhol's camouflage prints into his edgy collections. Versace immortalized Warhol's Marilyn Monroe portraits on dresses worn by supermodel Naomi Campbell in the early 1990s, a moment that became fashion history. More recently, Dior's 2013 collection featured Warhol's shoe drawings. Calvin Klein's 2018 line referenced his Disaster series, and Jeremy Scott's Moschino designs continue to embrace Warholian kitsch. Warhol passed away in 1987, following complications from gallbladder surgery. Fittingly, he was buried in a Stephen Sprouse suit, underscoring the lifelong interplay between his art and fashion. His death marked the end of an era, but his ideas about art as brand, celebrity as performance, and fashion as cultural statement remain foundational today. Andy Warhol was far more than just the pop art legend he is often labeled as. He was also a cultural entrepreneur who foresaw the convergence of art, commerce, and fashion. His oft-quoted prediction, "In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes," was not only prophetic but deeply reflective of the media-saturated world we live in today. Whether in museums, fashion runways, or pop culture at large, Warhol's influence continues to reverberate. His legacy lies not just in his artwork, but in the way he reshaped how society perceives art, fame, branding, and consumerism. For Warhol, art was fashion, and fashion was art, two sides of the same dazzling coin.